What's up, nutrition nerds, and welcome back to another video. And today we're going to talk about sports nutrition and whether it's actually important. This might seem a bit of a weird one to you. I mean, I have created a channel on triathlon nutrition, so surely my answer is yes, of course it's important, and you have to make sure you watch all of my videos and listen to all of my tips and tricks. This is going to be a rubbish video, James. Well, just hear me out. There's a couple of things that I want to talk about. And I started thinking about these things because there's a lot of comparisons to my work that I do in family medicine. On a day-to-day basis, I'll see lots of different patients for different reasons, but quite commonly I'll prescribe medication. And this medication might be to help control their blood pressure, their cholesterol, or their diabetes. Sometimes patients will have an underlying reason why their levels are high or out of control, but quite often it actually comes back to the basics. So they may be overweight, their diet may be poor, or they might not exercise. Now this video isn't going to be a lecture on that, but the concept of doing the basics right is so important and often overlooked in our daily life, and I wanted to relate it to sports nutrition. On this channel, we're going to get into some of the more niche ways that you can improve your training and races through nutrition. And we'll talk about other subjects like supplements and their pros and cons. And although I love that kind of discussion, before we get too far down the line, I just want to bring it back a little bit to the basics. And that's why I wanted to talk about whether sports nutrition actually is important. See, from a performance point of view, I could tell you which supplement might give you a 1 or 2% improvement on your race time, or might be best in a specific scenario. And I will, but the honest truth is that for a lot of people, this kind of thing doesn't really matter. Yet there's so much marketing, hype, and media focus on the latest trend or supplement. And I'm talking about sports performance products, but also everyday health products. And I guess to start with, this probably depends on what you think a sports nutritionist is and what sports nutrition covers. So does it just cover anyone who exercises and eats food? Because that's obviously quite a lot of people. Or is it only about those who are training for performance and more intensely than the keep fit and healthy exercise group? If you think that sports nutrition doesn't cover the average person who just exercises a bit, then in a broad sense, sports nutrition probably isn't that important. But is that then your doctor's responsibility, or is it your individual responsibility? And where do you get the information from? Because there's a lot out there, but at times it can be a bit misleading and a bit confusing. But if you aren't doing the basics right, then the more individualized or specialist parts of sports nutrition just won't matter as much. You're trying to put the icing on the cake, and you haven't even made the cake yet. You're trying to put the roof on a house, and you haven't even laid the foundations. Whatever metaphor you want to use. Regardless of what you think about sports nutrition, let's just take a moment to go over what I consider as the fundamentals of exercise and training. And if you haven't got these things sorted, look at making some changes, because they can have some really significant improvements on your overall health and your training. They're pretty simple, and I'll break them down into 4 different parts. So the first thing to talk about is a training plan. If you don't have one, get one. This is super important because whatever distance you're planning on doing, you have to increase an element of your training over time. So that might be distance or intensity or a combination of different approaches. But if you don't have a structured training plan and you haven't optimized your training, then the reality is that using a specific supplement or a tip or a trick here or there, it's not going to make a huge difference. The difference will be made by long-term training, consistently making small improvements, and the percent gain here will be massive compared to anything else. There are plenty of free guides out there for the different distances, so have a look if you don't already have a plan. Secondly, sleep. Now sleep might seem a bit of a basic thing, but it's crucial for our health. Our body needs sleep to help reset, repair, and heal itself. Sleep is a cornerstone of training and actually just being healthy, which is what we want. From a training point of view, if you don't get enough sleep, then you massively increase the risk of illness, injury, overtraining, or just not improving. And from a health point of view, there's a reasonable amount of evidence which links lack of sleep to poor health later in life and development of long-term health conditions. So consider sleep as a priority, and if you don't already, give your pillow some loving. Now this might seem a bit basic as well, but there's so much emphasis on pushing ourselves, on training, and not enough priority on recovery, as it's actually in the recovery period when we adapt to our training and get better. I did a video last week on the stress and adaptation process, so if you're interested and haven't watched that yet, then just click the link at the top of the screen. While recovery should be built into a proper training plan, sometimes it's missed, or sometimes we have other ideas about our sessions and feel like we want to go a bit harder, or that the easy stuff doesn't actually do that much. Side note, it really does. Recovery is vital, and without it you won't improve properly. And now to go full circle and tie it in together with nutrition, because we love food. You need to eat right on a daily basis, not just coming into a race and not just before or after a specific training session. You need to get your day-to-day food right and keep it that way. We've talked about this in previous videos, so your daily calorie intake and a good amount of healthy fats, protein and carbohydrates. If you're sure your diet is already good, so you've got a great combination of fruits and veggies, you eat different food sources and you eat well, awesome. If you aren't sure about your daily diet or you want a bit more information or detail, then I've linked to a playlist at the top of the screen. I've made videos which break down these topics, so go and have a watch. But truthfully, if you don't eat right over the long term, then it's going to affect your training, your racing and ultimately your health. So aim to get this sorted before you start thinking about some fancy supplements or the latest trend to improve your training. Regardless of whether you think that sports nutrition covers your everyday eating habits or not, there's so much that you can do to improve your health and your training without needing to think about any of the special nutrition tips or tricks. And personally, I think that the emphasis should be placed on this more. Sports nutrition is an awesome area and is so interesting, but the basics are where we build from. And this is why I noticed the comparison with family medicine. Don't look for shortcuts in your health or fitness. Try and build a sustainable, healthy lifestyle with training as part of that. If you think I haven't told you anything super interesting or mentioned about the latest research, just have a think first as to whether you're doing these things that I mentioned properly. If you aren't, then I would suggest you shift your focus and make these a priority, because they're the foundations of your training. But if you've got these things nailed, awesome. We'll get back to the more niche stuff in future videos. If you found this useful, interesting, or it resonated with you, then just let me know in the comments, because I'd love to hear. And as always, give that video a like and press subscribe for me. And I'll catch you next time. See ya.